The fourth Friday meeting of the Odyssey Phenotype Development and Evaluation Workgroup. We're joining together after a small brief hiatus, and I want to talk about a few agenda topics. I want to talk about our change in our meeting cadence and related topics, the OKR for 2025, and things that we are trying to go towards, updates on the Odyssey Phenotype Library and the Book of Odyssey chapter from ASA. We have. No, I thought I had updated these slides. I want to talk about the OKRs and the different work streams that we are working on, what we can achieve this year, and give individuals some opportunity to talk about those. So those are my agenda items. Any other topics that we would like to talk about today?
I think we have an update from Chris on his paper, which we should celebrate.
Yes. Yes. Congratulations, Dr. McCauley. Could you give us a brief about your paper?
Sure. Sorry, give me 1 second here. You caught me 2 minutes behind schedule. So yeah, after a long process, we finally published our work looking at a rare rheumatic disease and the phenotype validation process of that through the Odyssey community, led here by Joel, Gotham, Asa, myself, and then we collaborated with others at Stanford, Columbia, did some manual chart review, validated evaluators output. It was really nice. It was a good project, hopefully one of many now that we've figured out through some of this code. So the plan is to kind of explode that to other rheumatic and autoimmune diseases and move forward. So thank you all for participating.
Yeah, and I still remember the 2 years ago when Chris joined the community, and I was talking to him, and I said, it's very special for clinical leaders, clinical informaticians, and practicing physicians to come into the space and get involved, understand the tools, be really hands-on. And there is so many accelerators that you can use for the science, and you have taken it started from scratch, learned, built a team, converted your data into OMAP, understood the complex logic behind P-Evaluator, did a validation, and I think this is the first end-to-end by a clinical leader. So thank you very much for this leadership and for the contribution you've done to this community.
It was a great experience, and it was awesome working with everybody. Thank you.
And Chris, you say it's a long process. We were just commenting yesterday, Joel and I, that relatively speaking, that paper was pretty fast. Like from the time you had the last draft till the time of acceptance for a paper like this is not long at all. Like
that's helpful context.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right.
And Gautam, on the agenda, maybe Joel, do you wanna have some time just to talk about your plan for the GenAI maybe experiment topic?
Joel, you're on mute.
Am I up, or am I jumping the line here?
You are welcome to talk now, or we can come back to you if you want to.
So, hey folks, so one of the things we're working on is looking at generating concept sets through using LLMs. And we've gotten pretty far with it. We're using it on some internal stuff. And we'd like to go through sort of a formal evaluation. And the evaluation would entail having one pair of people creating the LLM manually, so a human generated, and then I'll create it using the LLM. And then the final step would be having an adjudicator compare the differences between the two and see which one got it right, which one got it wrong, and then we'll calculate all kinds of good statistics after that. So we're looking for help from the Odyssey community, and we're thinking about maybe we'll do it either in the symposium or maybe we'll do a dry run ahead of time just to see. So we need a couple people to generate interested in generating cohorts. From the adjudicator side, we were thinking about is using some of our clinicians, people with clinical expertise, to be the adjudicators. So, if we have, clinicians who are interested in, what I would do is I'm going to send out an email to the clinicians that I know, and Chris, you're on it, to give an idea of, maybe one or two health conditions that you'd feel good to adjudicate a concept set for. And then once we get the clinicians on board and we get the health conditions straightened out and which ones we can do, then we'll start the process of trying to find people to develop the concept sets. So reach out to me, and through this group, probably the easiest. If you're interested in participating in that. We might do some ahead of time, might do some at the symposium. Does anybody have any questions?
No questions, but I have sort of a comment. That may be a question eventually.
Okay.
This actually goes back to my review of Chapter 11, our phenotype piece. It would be really helpful, and this is mostly informed by my work on the Eagle Empire other side of HL7, but to strengthen the theoretical model for phenotype evaluation. I mean, we have so much there that I think is buried in the chapter. It would be really helpful if we could bring up an abstract framework, a model framework on the phenotype evaluation piece that could then be deployed as you go in to do this AI concept generation piece. So it maintains a certain amount of referential integrity to the standard model framework that is being deployed here. I mean, I think that in reading the chapter, there's so much good information, but it's kind of buried. And I think, again, while the phenotype evaluation may be mostly in Chapter 15, I think that at least the abstract pieces of it, the model framework, should really be in Chapter 11. That sort of builds in, like, this is the scientifically validated, tested way that phenotype evaluation is a best practice and sort of the gold standard for, and like all the phenotype February evaluations, all of the other work that we've done in here, sort of as a foundation to then create much more valid, reliable work as we start going into using AI, as we start going into expanding out the use of the phenotype repository. So at least we know what the criterion are for each of those phenotype tags, if we will, in the repository. So sorry if I'm rambling a bit, but I didn't see that right front and center up in the top of the chapter on the phenotype and the discussion of phenotypes. And I think it'd be really helpful, especially for people who have not been intimately involved in the phenotype work and in the concept generation work and the evaluation work over time, to really wrap their heads around, okay, well, here are the key considerations where if I want to start thinking about doing this, or if I want to deploy this in my own instance.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, Ozzy raised her hand. I was about to ask her, because I think this is Ozzy and Gotham's paper, right?
Yeah, actually, Joel, and Ben, you raised a great point. And actually, Joel, as I was thinking of the work you want to lead and the experiment, I was thinking it's clear to us the first piece of the experiment, which is like creating the concept set, having those two ways, the human way and the AI way. And we're thinking of validation or adjudication by a clinical review as our main approach for this work.
Which is still the gold standard, right? I mean,
which is still the gold standard, and right. it makes sense in this context because we're not thinking of the full phenotype definition. We're really thinking of the concept selection, which is should be clinically driven more than anything else. Once you apply definition and start thinking of logic and how it looks on a data, then there's all these different factors that has to do with the data provenance, with how people look, which slightly start like having multiple layers other than the clinical basically target. But to your point, I was thinking of but it would be nicer if we actually think more structurally of that validation or evaluation piece. And in addition to that gold standard clinical adjudication, could we use any of the framework, workflow, methods, tools that we already have been advocating in Odyssey. And I don't know, Ben, if you read, so I was going to give, I think next point is to give an update on the book. So on chapter 11, we just finished kind of the first draft. It's now open for everybody to kind of look and edit.
That's what I was reading.
Yeah, so that, in that I try to put like the concepts, and that's what Patrick Ryan keep pushing on us is like, okay, we have those ideas, we have those framework, we have like tool like cohort diagnostics, which like put everything under the sun in terms of characterization in front of a reviewer.
Right.
But do we still have anything that is like really objective that we can say, you do this and that, and like, you know, like objective criteria for really evaluation. We have evaluated, which is fantastic, but it has its own limitation. And then like, is there any other like more, like more structured process that could we follow? And I do think that maybe Joel experiment, we can think of the gold standard as a clinical input, but maybe as we do this and as we have AI as well, we can start thinking of what else can we do in terms of evaluation and run an experiment on it with like clear like step by step, which also like,
Go ahead.
No, because like we have applications on like the paper from the recent paper from Dr. McCauley actually has the chart review, right, and has the clinical input and have cohort diagnostic and have evaluator. So it's an application of all these things, and then what you eventually come. But we haven't yet came up with, like, to your point, a much clearer step-by-step evaluation that we could say, whether you're all in Odyssey or not, this is how like evaluation can be done.
And I fully feel like the validation pieces really belong in the chapter 15, right? That's the more sort of nuts and boltsy kind of, here's how you use evaluator, here's the steps for validation of these things. What I was thinking about more is, again, really like a model framework and really visual, if we can do it, for all those considerations that we were doing, you were mostly doing in the phenotype February. Like, here were the key things that we were looking for as users of these phenotypes that we wanted, in order to trust that this is appropriate for our context of use. These are the kind of things we wanted to see, and these were the. I mean, it was beyond sensitivity and specificity, right? There was a little bit more, clinical relevance and context of use and those kind of things that I think are important factors that people getting into this fresh would really need to know up front. And I think, like I said, just a somewhat abstract model framework that has those key considerations in there, built into some kind of structural diagram, would be really great to just put right in the background section or right up front in terms of chapter 11. And like I said, to kind of get them started in the right direction, then we can refer to the more technical validation pieces and the use in real world data and refinement and things like that. Maybe in chapter 15, or maybe a balance between 11 and 15 kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we have it right now. It's very high level. It doesn't get into all the details of the context.
The details are there. They're kind of buried. They're like in different parts of chapter 11. I think we can just pull it all up to the top and keep the scientifically acceptable phenotype model framework is here, and here's a picture of it, and then then you can discuss it and refer back to it. I just I hate to lose all that wonderful stuff that happened in Phenotype February over the years.
It's interesting what you're saying, Ben, because one of the things, as far as we think that we're pretty far along, but we sort of found kind of early on in developing the concept sets and using LLM, where you're writing a prompt and you're sort of giving LLM the rules on what to include within a concept set and what not to include. And I think that's so that's something we have to sort of, I think that's another set of guidelines we need to put together, what actually goes into a concept set. So for instance, we had the situation where we were making a concept set for diarrhea, and we had the question with clinicians is, gastroenteritis almost always co-occurs with diarrhea. So the question is, do you put gastroenteritis into a diarrhea concept set? So that's, so we have to sort of decide on those rules. And there was, as we were going through the LLM was saying, because we were using a guideline within the LLM prompt to say, if more than 95% of the people who have this condition also have this main condition. So if more than 95% of the people with gastroenteritis have diarrhea, then it should be included.
Yeah.
So we
And-
had a lot of instances where things that you wouldn't think of should probably be included. So we have to decide whether
Right.
that's,
And that's exactly one of the things that we've done in the quality measurement domain for years in developing these rule-based cohorts. Essentially, I call them data presence. They're like data frequency. So presence of these specific codes that define these conditions. How do they actually appear in the real-world data? And do the clinicians then recommend that concept actually should be included in our value set? It's our value set, it's your concept set, kind of thing. And that's exactly the kind of thing we want to have up front, to know that people need to actually do that first before they actually start really refining these models. Is that some of these concepts may not be initially seem like they belong there, but in the real world, they actually are very important to the sensitivity of that algorithm.
Yeah. I put a note in the forum post, the Odyssey forum post, about rules for that, and it would probably be really good if you responded to that to get the ideas about what you're thinking about. I'll put the link to that in there.
Yeah, you put the link because I don't have to search for it. I'll never find it.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll put it in. Thanks.
Okay. Before we go to the next topic, I wanted to see, Huan, do you have any shifted topics that you want to share about your work that you're doing with LLMs and code definitions?
No, I was just going to mention that, why not evaluate using, the phenotype library concept sets, right? Instead of having somebody curate them by hand again.
That is, actually, we discussed this a lot, and I think Joel probably speak better to me than that. But I think Martin is like the more our expert in like just finding the right kind of scientific experiment of the evaluation. One of the concepts of evaluating any GenAI tool or method is that you have to run the experiment giving the AI exactly the same information you're giving to a human. If we go back and evaluate things done in any repository, whether it's in any prior work, whether it's in our library or something that say somebody did and have chart review it or anything like that, we don't know the circumstances of those experiments, and we don't know what kind of prior knowledge the human had as they went with their work. And the idea is the real evaluation that we're trying to do is a human process versus an AI process, both having the same exact circumstances of running the task. So they have the same exact of inputs from knowledge from knowledge to priorities to assumptions, and then they go ahead in the task. So if we can't do something that has done in the past because we don't exactly know in what circumstances those phenotypes were developed or concept sets been curated. And so we have to really deal with an AI as an entity that is equal to the human and give them the same exact input and then evaluate the output of the task.
I have two comments on that. One, first, if you don't use the phenotype library concept sets, you're eroding trust from it because, somebody reading the paper will think, hey, these guys are not using their own things. So that's not good. Is that not the source of truth? So that's on that. And the second side is that, you're still not on level playground ever with an LLM. So even if you provide the instructions the same as the human, the LLM has a great advantage that it has, all of PubMed and all of this stuff inside that a human doesn't. So, I don't really subscribe to that, idea of having a fair evaluation versus an LLM with a human, because that's never going to happen. And also the human is going to have the advantage of having, 15 years of experience of tricky things in their own field versus an LLM that just has a bunch of papers. So it's still never balanced, and I don't know if a line of argument makes sense in that direction. But that's just the way that we've been thinking about LLMs here.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I think that's what we're hoping to come out of there. We're not, we're not going in a priori thinking the LLM is going to create a better concept set. It'd be interesting to see. It's going to be very interesting to see what the LLM misses and what it doesn't get. What it doesn't get right. Based upon difference between experience and just reading papers.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to come up with a bunch of garbage, as I've shown in the couple of last submissions that I had to the symposium, where there's the LLM comes up with a bunch of concepts, way more than a human, but you don't really know if those are true or not, right? So that's the other side of the coin when you use the Phenotype Library concept set, right? Because I mean, if I come up with a bunch of them, do those not being there? It's 100% true. You don't know. So it's also a little bit messy.
Yeah.
See, it's interesting you bring that up because I have had the same experience with my reviews, that there are a lot of technical solutions to these, enhancing these definitions, but they're missing that contextual relativity, which is really important that the humans have because of their experience, right? And that's why I think this framework is so important, because they're solving a problem technically and feasibility wise, but they're not solving it scientifically, right? They're not taking that. They're not imposing the importance of the referential integrity of these particular LLMs or these other, solutions to the problem, which is, well, do we trust the outputs from these things? What are the parameters that these things are running against, and what are their reference, what's the referential integrity to the specific, context of use? I've put many comments in my reviews, SPC reviews, on that, to that effect. It's like, well, these look really shiny, but are they really trustworthy?
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. And that's the tricky part, because you see them and you're like, oh, that looks reasonable, but it might be completely out of scope or out of whack, basically.
Yeah. Chris, you got your hands up.
Yeah, so not to explode the project or make a ton of more work, but doesn't it make sense then to kind of take the next step and actually validate this through chart review and to determine whether the concept sets generated by AI versus the human are actually identifying the concept of interest? Like,
I would vote yes.
if you had, we have a couple EHRs that we're friendly with in this community, and you can, randomly select X number of patients to kind of see, because to the points being made, we're not really going to know what's superior. We'll know the agreement, but we're not really going to know who performs better.
That's interesting, because you're talking about using, I mean, it's one thing to use evaluate, a chart reviewer or the evaluator to say, this person had a code for rheumatoid arthritis. Did he really have rheumatoid arthritis? Versus saying a concept idea of rheumatoid arthritis going back to a diagnosis code for an ICD code for rheumatoid arthritis. I think that's almost got to imply rheumatoid arthritis, though, right? Is that, or maybe I'm missing what you're saying?
Well, I guess this idea that, the AI's, for your example of diarrhea, AI is going to generate a whole list of concepts that they believe, is going to encapsulate and identify diarrhea. And then you look in the chart and there's no evidence of diarrhea in that patient they selected, or maybe I might be misconstruing what you had in mind, but I just feel like taking it one step further might be beneficial, but I'm just not sure the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of the amount of effort required.
Yeah.
I want to hear from Juan, and I want to come back to this point.
Okay, thanks. Well, yeah, that is a great idea, and that's the point where all my previous experimentation ended. With the need of doing a chart review based on a phenotype picked by LLM-generated versus Phenotype Library versus probabilistic. However, I would do that when we're at the stage of actually extracting the whole definition, not just a concept set. Because like Joel was saying, right, the concept set will be fuzzy. However, a phenotype definition with inclusion, exclusion, and rules will need to be evaluated at some point, with a human, with chart review.
Yeah, which is why this morning, to that point, I was debating, conceptually thinking, are we validating a definition which will have more into it than we're thinking? We're answering the question, do these codes represent this clinical phenomena? Because it's kind of it's very related, but it's not exactly, as you point, like Juan, you can have a very fussy concept set, but if you put it in the right logic, you might actually have that perfect balance of sensitivity and specificity. And the question is, what is the intent of the concept set? Is it to just pick the people, or is it that noisy entry criteria that then you're gonna build around it a logic that will come into a good performance. But what I'm thinking right now, Joel, and if everybody is really serious about this, with the experience and the resources we have with the community, we can actually answer the broader question of how can AI help us in phenotyping from selecting concepts and other stuff if we actually run this experiment properly. What I'm suggesting is we start, like maybe Joel and I can come up with a draft of the exact experiment. What's the question we're answering? And then like the exact instruction, break it down into the experiment, and then propose it to the group, who've interested, including what exactly our validation. And then we can have we can discuss the exact basically method or the experiment steps, and then come in a conclusion what exactly we're answering and what is our approach in every step, including the potential of going down the route of could we do chart reviews with one site? Is that even possible? I'm just before we just keep discussing high level, can we go down, have a draft of the experiment and see who's truly involved and would like to really participate? And then we can agree on a full plan if people are really interested in this. And Joel leading it, of course, I'm putting you on the spot. But the idea is making it a full community effort and think through it instead of just discussing and then go on our own ways by next week.
Yeah. I mean, in working with the LLM for concept sets that I've been doing for the last few months, it's kind of eye-opening to see, what the LLM is including, what it's not including that humans have included, and the rationale that the LLM gives for either including something or skipping something. The way I have it set up, it answers all those questions. So it's, and a lot of times I've shown the LLM rationale to clinicians, and it's like, oh yeah, I can't really argue with that. Other times they'll say, that doesn't make sense. Sounds good, but it's not in practice or something like that. So it's, I think this is going to be a definite learning experience, but I've always considered the concept set to be, sort of the basis for the phenotype. If the concept set's wrong, the phenotype's going to be wrong. Sort of the foundation for it. So it would be nice to have something that help us get it right. It might not be perfect, but at least it will, it'll give us stronger suggestions on what should and shouldn't go into a concept set.
And just one comment, Gautam, before you go. And the reason why I'm suggesting that we go slightly more, have a session and go more into the details is because actually the workflow that Joel has built and experimented internally in J&J, it's more than just asking the AI. It's not just asking the AI to come up with the concept. It's actually built on Odyssey tools, including Phoebe. It's really taking input out of Phoebe and then try to weigh on concept by concept. So it's using the vocabulary kind of ontology that is in Odyssey vocabulary. It's using Phoebe, which is meaning it's using the prevalence of the concepts across the network. And then it's having an AI kind of step in it. So it's not just asking AI, what is the codes for diarrhea? It's a workflow that built on the ontology and the vocabulary and Phoebe, which is working on the prevalence across the network.
Yeah, I think there's a few topics. You guys may be mixing a few ideas. I think I just wanted to just talk through my understanding of this topic. First of all, using an AI to build a concept set, I think it's a good productivity tool. And as long as it's evaluated and it helps produce high quality concept set, I think it makes a reasonable sense to do that effort. But from what is the question that we're trying to ask? The first is you have SNOMED codes. SNOMED codes were created by somebody, and when they created it, they had an intent. So every concept name has a intent, a clinical idea that it represents when it was originally created. Is the intent of the persons that created it the same as the AI's understanding of that intent? And then also, are people who are using this code having the same understanding? So the people who wrote it, people who use it, do they have the same understanding? Essential hypertension, uncomplicated. Does that mean the same for the people who wrote the code versus those who are using it versus the AI? And that's a question that is probably unanswered, because if you look at SNOMED codes, we have concept code and we have concept name. We do not have a description of what are rules to be using the code for. The second question, I think, is the VB part, which is we have this ontology with all these codes, but is it being used in the data? And with the concept prevalence study, we showed that 90% of the codes are not even being used. They are in the vocabulary, they're not used. The third thing that we are mixing up is a local site that is using the code having the same understanding as the people who created the code. And the fourth question that we are mixing is, when we identify patients who have this code, do they truly have the disease that the code was intended to be used? So those are the four types of questions that I think of from phenotyping perspective.
So Gautham, I think the only thing I would disagree with you there is I don't think it's at the code level. I think it's at the concept set level, right? Each of these concept set intentional definitions for each individual concept set that we use is built up of a number of codes, hopefully only within the same terminology, right? And that's where we run into problems, because SNOMED's wonderful. It has this code for everything, but the downside is it has a code for everything. And people document similar concepts that might be represented by like SNOMED extensions in the code, as opposed to using the parent code, right? And that just creates all kinds of complexities in the concept set and value set development that we need to deal with, because it really affects the amount of noise in these different things. And so that's, I think, again, where some abstract model framework to sort of guide people's understanding of those issues. I don't disagree with the other three of the three of the four here of your points there. I think would be really useful just to surface.
Yeah. All right. All right. So let me take you guys to the next topic. So very quickly, I want to talk about the change in meeting cadence. We are doing once a month, mainly because it's been some changes in our availability. And so I think we'll try to do once a month. And if we start ramping up and we have more time, we'll go back to twice a month meetings. So we will be doing once a month meetings on the fourth Friday moving forward. These are our OKRs. We usually start with our OKRs. We have the enhancing the science of phenotyping. And one of the items that we have colored in green are the ones that we are making good progress. The items that are red are those that are either going to be closed out, we cannot deliver it, or we try to simplify because of just challenges of delivering on this content. So I want to go to the next topic, which is Azza, do you want to give an update on the Book of Odyssey chapter?
Yeah. So the chapter is now ready in terms of like all the content are written. Myself, Darwin Folks, David, and Anna were the people who just went into creating the content, and it's ready in terms of just like curated all the content we have. And of course, Gowtham, I took the pieces that were already written about the library that you and Huan worked on from prior work. And then, so what it currently just needs is we actually should, it's already with like the education work group, because they need things as things go. I don't know what's their timeline at this point, but from there, like it's already in where the place that the lead of the books can just look at it, but they're not moving yet. I don't know what's happening. So this means we can edit as we go, because nothing is like basically pencils are not down. So what we would appreciate if any of you would like to go in and review it, have any comments, just be an edit on it, and of course put your name on the top where it says who's writing and who is like editing. But you can go ahead and read it. There are nothing is new. It's all curated of material and ideas that we have been discussing for the last 3 years or more. actually, I do have a particular request from Huan because I couldn't track you when we started updating the chapter from the previous chapter. From the previous edition of the book, there was a part for a probabilistic phenotyping, and I wasn't sure what should we do with that. It's right now copied paste from the last version of the Book of Odyssey. But if you want to update anything, Juan, we still have time because they're not basically taking yet the chapter. So if you want to go in and just like add anything other than what you had from our previous Book of Odyssey, feel free to do that. I can maybe link everybody to the chapter. It sits in the education working group documentations.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to update citations from other contributions that are not there. But yeah, I'll go. Now I know where it is. I have it on my email. What is the deadline? So I can put it on my calendar as well.
The deadline passed a long time ago, but I am not yet sure what is happening. So at the time that I at least felt confident that at least we have the content reviewed from like the last edition, and I wasn't scared that like it's the rubbish right now if they took it. I did inform them that the chapter is there. It is like people are still editing content, but the content is all in there. But I did not hear anything. So I'm not sure what's happening with the Book of Odyssey. All what I know is the deadline technically passed. Our content is there because, but we could still like update it. So yeah, I would say as soon as possible. I'm not sure what's happening with the steering committee and the book, and I know it's happening, but I'm not sure what the timelines are right now.
You all should have access to an editable link.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And
That was
also
the one
the
in your
sites
email,
are.
Gowtham?
Yeah.
The link is the one in your email, Gowtham, for the agenda today.
Yeah, so the link was sent out in this morning's email. It's on the Odyssey forum post and in this PowerPoint slide.
Gowtham particularly also have some action. Anything that is highlighted in yellow, that's Gowtham's pieces that he had that I am pushing him to just because he wrote like, yeah, we have some definitions that, yeah. So anyways, so if you see a highlight, that's just me and Gowtham. Also, the citations are not complete because those are also editorial stuff that we haven't integrated it into the library that they created for the Books of Odyssey. So that's one last task.
Yeah, I have help here. This year around, we have some help. I have from my team, Sajjan, who's on the call here. He's going to help us with formatting and citation. So that's going to help us get this to completion. Thank you, Sajjan. All right, so there's also the Odyssey Phenotype Library paper itself, which is now part of it is in the Book of Odyssey core definition chapter. So Huan, you and I had written an initial draft. We need to get it to some preprint version. So I'll ping you so that we can get it to some state of done.
And what you guys have written and edited, and there were people who actually made comments on that piece, Gowtham, on that draft. I took it all into the book. So the current version of the book has that final draft, well, not final, but wherever you reach in the write-up.
Excellent. So this is an important topic that we really need to give focus on. So this is going to be my priority now that I am giving more time back to the Odyssey work group. So Jackie, we know we stopped for some time because of competing issues. Jackie, as you all know, has the VA Cipher library, and it has integrated many of our content from the Odyssey Phenotype Library. There was more as part of the pipeline. We have more core definitions to contribute to the VA Cipher library. But before I wanted to do that, I wanted to clean it up a little bit. Some naming conventions and some logic descriptions were off. So this Google Docs has the extract of the Odyssey Phenotype Library, and together with Sajjan and a few others, I'm going through cleanup. So this link was probably sent to you in the email. So feel free to click on it and look at it. Once that cleanup is done, I will make a release of the Odyssey Phenotype Library and then push those content to VA Cipher for integration.
Yeah, that sounds great, Gowtham. And I actually wanted to give you guys an update on the paper because it's also been a while since we talked about that. So when we, we had our poster earlier this year at the AIMIA Informatics Summit about this integration, and we got a lot of folks interested. And since then, I've met with some folks from VKB and also from HDR UK Phenotype Libraries. And so one thing I wanted to bring up with you guys is, in addition to like highlighting our integration in that common conceptual standard we can use to integrate our libraries, we're actually adding on, and then we're just like sort of testing it, getting the data into Cipher, adding in VKB and HDR UK, which I think will make a much more interesting paper. And so that's something we were just like starting to talk about, and we wanted to integrate those phenotypes in our library anyway, but I thought this would be a cool opportunity to get those folks on this paper. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, because I have a draft like aiming toward that, and that I want to share with you in early August so that you can give some reaction. But yeah, any thoughts that you have on that?
Yeah, I think you're continuing on that original idea of what are the minimum items that can allow for interoperability between these libraries, and due to continuing that, you've already demonstrated VA Cipher and Odyssey, but going to the other libraries and being able to integrate them is I think a powerful message.
Mm-hmm.
So Gautam, what's just the timeline for you to be ready to provide Jackie with basically the input for her next batch?
Thank you for putting me on the spot, Aza.
It's Aza's job.
Yeah, so if I were to commit, I will try to get this to you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that sounds great. And we can, I'm just like drafting with placeholder like for numbers and some figures. So that sounds great. And sort of on this vein, like I also will be reaching out to you, Gautham and Aza, because after like meeting with I don't know if have you met Wei Chi Wei from Vanderbilt before in your AIMIA travels?
Maybe.
So we just spoke with him about like kind of moving toward an effort of like having sort of a consensus on a metadata standard between a lot of these groups, between some of our groups. And so anyway, I was going to email you guys about that soon, but it was just like, oh wow, it's like, so things are kind of like coming out of this, I think, which is cool, and want to involve you in that discussion. And anyway, this is like a brainstorm. This just like sort of organically has come up, but thought that would be great to involve you guys in.
I think that ties to this Phenotype Library future direction. So having a common metadata conceptual model for all libraries is, I think is needed, and you're leading this effort. So yes, so that will also inform the design of the next generation of the Odyssey Phenotype Library. Even if
it's the $1 trillion question. What is the metadata? What's the minimum metadata that you need to keep in a phenotype library?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, perfect segue onto this. But yeah, sounds like a plan, Gautham, and we can chat. I just looked at the Google sheet and it looks pretty clear to me. So sounds good.
Yeah.
Jackie, with all the stuff going on, I know across our institutions, is Cipher as a tool, as a resource, it's secure? Just wanna.
Yeah.
Is there any threat on it as a base of knowledge?
Right. We are over that hump of earlier this year when like just gray hairs were accumulating on my head. And so we are now over that hump, which is why like I haven't been like around too much. And as you can see, we're actually like kind of ramping back up again. And so yeah, we don't have any concerns at present. So all good over here on VA side. We have
Thank you.
made it through.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I'll ping you, Jackie. We'll just create a. I think I'm going to also kick off another substream of kind of designing what a Odyssey Phenotype Library may look like in the future. So we need, as of right now, Odyssey community members find it very hard to contribute code definitions to the library. The curation system and the management system is not very clear. The user interface is bad. The ability to retrieve it is clunky. You need to be a programmer to be able to do it. So we need to solve some of these problems. So I want to call for volunteers. And I want to definitely leverage as much as the VA Cipher as possible, or maybe hopefully VA Cipher is the home of this content. So want to work with you on that, and so I want to create a substream, a subgroup to work on that. Just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, that sounds great. Mm-hmm.
What else do we have to talk about?
Gotham, also the new version of the library, the other thing that is missing, and we just got so busy and didn't follow up on it, is basically all the February phenotypes. We haven't yet have, we haven't, one of the, like,
haven't integrated it.
Yeah, part of the refreshment is adding those new definitions that the community worked on. And because we didn't push people to do a formal submissions, these artifacts are living in the team environment.
Yeah.
And I just,
yeah, we'll work on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna, I already contacted others. I know where their artifacts are and what they're confident with. I'm not sure of exactly how many continued at a full research, like how many of those phenotypes went to a full analysis. I know.
Yeah.
We will know during the symposium.
We have Tanya on the call, I think.
Yeah. Tanya is the one who is, her definitions are clear where they are and that they are complete. But I looked at, Tanya's done. In that sheet, there are definitions that clearly are final, and then there are definitions that are like, so it's just knowledge of tracking people and asking them if they're completely done. Tanya's have her completed.
Yep.
Tanya, do you want to do a presentation or any comments that you would like to share?
You mean regarding the state of the phenotypes?
Yeah. You have it.
Well,
you also have the paper accepted, right? Or the abstract.
That's just a poster abstract about our process, and that would not probably be very like interested to anyone who like followed what was happening. If there are people interested, I can, yes. It would contain a lot of like psychiatric minutiae and details, because the phenotypes have grown complex, and like the thing we're capturing is kind of niche, but it's important for like the field, as I believe. So yeah, if there's anyone interested to hear about like first episode psychosis, I would be happy to talk about that.
So I could, we could, in a future meeting, we can have some time set up for you if that's of interest. And
yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so there's another topic here about the Atlas curriculum. There was one ask from the past. It's in red, obviously. No progress has been made. It's Atlas tutorial. I'm going to see if that is something that we can restart for creating some YouTube videos about basic, advanced Atlas tutorials. I think that's all we have for today.
Okay, so action items. I think for Joel topic, Joel is already drafting a protocol, so maybe you can share it with, once you feel comfortable with it, Joel, and figure out the details, you can share it with this group, and whoever would be interested will just form basically a group just for that experiment. I think we can learn across the community a lot versus just like few people doing on their own. I know, Juan, you already have multiple papers on evaluating LLMs and what they can do. So I think that, like, that perspective, I think we would learn from. Maritime perspective, of course, and then just like the clinical expertise on the things, and then the phenotypers. So like there's multiple dimensions of that: the experiment itself and the research of the right way of doing it, then the actual task that we will need to complete, and collaboration around that. And we'll discuss the piece of the validation and what is the appropriate way. There's many ways, like there's multiple things in addition to that clinical adjudication. But yeah, I think we have a good momentum for that and an important topic. And then that's Joel, and I will just help Joel. And then the other task is the book of Odyssey. Juan, particularly you, we need to make sure that the probabilistic phenotyping is in there and updated with the sites and the knowledge that you have gained and would like to share it. And then anybody else, Ben, if you have interest in coming up with a more detailed conceptual framework for the evaluation piece that we want to add to the topic, to the book, then I do have a diagram, but I know what you mean. So maybe we can, if we want to work on updating that before, even if we didn't hit the deadline for the book. I think Ben is gone. Yeah, Ben is gone.
Okay, I'd be very interested.
Oh yeah, you're here. Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. So maybe you and I, I'm curating a to-do list, but maybe you and I can just, if you want to work on a diagram for the chapter, we can definitely work on that.
Okay.
And then everybody else, please feel free. We have at least till next week, or till we meet next. If you want to edit anything, if you just want to review, if you just want to provide comments, I do perceive this chapter, at least from my perspective, is where we have reached in our knowledge and at least best practices for phenotyping. So it's nice to read for your own kind of learning before it goes out as to everybody. Or if you actually want to feel that as a somebody who's in the field, an expert in the field, you feel that there's something missing that is not covered in that chapter. And the last to-do list, and on that is it Sachin? Is that right? Sachin is doing the citation, Gowtham?
Yeah.
And then Sachin, your to-do is to figure out the citation. There is a library that they did for the book, and I can make sure that you have the information for the citations. And then Gowtham, in 2 weeks, you have Jackie's. You have to send Jackie the definitions. Those are also our quote gold standard, or not gold standard, but definition that we feel comfortable with. And then the last task is on me to give you, Gowtham, the new definitions for the next release for the library. And then Gowtham, you and Huan want to have a follow-up on the paper for the library. And then Jackie, you have the follow-up on the paper for the Cipher Odyssey integration.
Great.
Got 4 minutes back. And we're meeting in 2 weeks. And Gowtham, you changed. We're meeting now every week, right? Every month.
Every month.
Every month. But our next meeting is
last Friday of every month. Fourth Friday of every month.
So our next meeting,
August 22nd.
22nd or 29th?
22nd, because it's the fourth Friday. There are 5 Fridays on August.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to talk about this. This is the one you and I are on vacation. We might do that. That's exactly why I was like, I think there was like one thing that is when we did the Acadians. Yeah, maybe we just push it to we are back on the 29th.
You clearly didn't plan your vacations very well.
We coordinate our vacations.
I mean, what's your priority here? Come on.
Now, maybe, Gowtham, we just cancel the 22nd and we put a post hoc or ad hoc, whatever you guys call it, on the 5th of September and then go
Okay.
back to that list, okay?
Okay,
So we
let's
can
do
follow
that.
up on those 4 topics.
All right, so August 22nd meeting is canceled. September 12th would be the second Friday. So we'll do a September 12th meeting and a September 26th meeting.
Or 5th and 26th. I think that would be better.
5th will be
Memorial, Labor Day, right?
school start and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can also follow on the channels for the topics as we go, because I know Joel wants to move fast, like if we want things ready to the symposium.
Yeah. All right. Really
Thank
good
you,
talking to you
everyone.
all. See you in about a month. Thank you.
Bye, folks.
Thank you.